Scrappy peeps, Suzanna here today for Stash Bash, and we're doing our monthly YouTube hop, and this month we are putting a bash in our stash using old manufacturers. And I have chosen to use Lily Bee Designs. I have a ton of the pattern papers. What I love about the pattern papers is that they are pretty generic. They're either really bold designs or they're really subtle designs, which are kind of like to me they're kind of like a Bow Bunny dot paper, and they have a lot of uses. I do not have a lot of embellishments, so in order to compensate for that, I decided that a mixed media background and a large cut file would help me to be able to overcome that fact and still have plenty to design with on the page. So I'm using the packaging technique to create the mixed media background, and I am using some shimmers, mists, and just sort of creating a layer to my desire was to create a starry night sort of an effect, but nothing too dark. Because there are the stars in the saying in the digital cut file, I wanted to complement that and sort of pop that against a background. So that paper that I just cut on the left-hand side was sort of the foundation of the color palette for this layout. So I dug through all of my Lily Bee design papers, and I chose things that primarily had that aqua color in them because there wasn't a lot of black in the collection, or it wasn't a true black like that, and that's what I used as the foundations. So that background it was very gray, and it didn't have enough of the aquas that are, or the turquoise that are in the papers. And so I got some Heidi Swap color shine and did the packaging technique on that. And then I'm also going to just use the dropper to put some splatters, as well as I have a sort of a more a darker color aqua that I can use as well. That's what this is, just to add a little bit more of the depth of the aqua that's in the pattern papers that I'm using. And then you can see that stencil to the left there, that I wanted to put some more stars to mimic the stars that are in the cut file. And so I used some texture paste and just added some of my Heidi Swap color shine to add some color to that texture paste. And I tried to get as close a color to the pattern paper that I used for the cut file as I could, but it was kind of hard to do because I don't have quite that color. So I added a little bit more to darken that up a little bit, and it is a closer match to the pattern paper in the cut file. It's still not quite. I could have probably have added a little bit of green to it to make it match, but it was close enough. I didn't want the bigger stars because I knew I had another digital cut file that I was going to use that was to add some more black to the layout. So I used some of the smaller stars, and then that sort of next grade size up of those stars. And I put it in a couple of places, and I didn't really know how this layout was going to go, so I was hoping that I wasn't going to end up covering it up. But what I wasn't thinking about was where I just put that cluster of stars there to the left-hand side was actually where I really wanted to put the picture, but I didn't want to mix any more texture paste, and so I had to rethink how I was going to make this layout go. So originally my plan was that I was going to stitch down the side of that border piece on the left-hand side, but I ended up putting this smaller strip in instead, and I still could have stitched on it, but there was so much texture to the layout that it didn't really need that additional stitching. It may have looked fine, but by doing this, I just decided that was enough. There has to be a stopping point at some point, or you could end up with everything on your page. So I'm going to put that down, put the little border in. Originally I was going to slide it underneath, but just sitting next to itself, the other border was just fine. And then I'm going to struggle with the placement of this picture because it didn't quite end up where I wanted it to go. So this cut file is from, I believe it's from the Silhouette store, and it says, "The world is full of magic things, patiently waiting for our senses to grow sharper." And I just loved that the file was big, and I loved the sentiment, and it worked perfectly with the wonder of us being in Myrtle Beach for spring break at night and just enjoying the wonders of the beach and the Ferris wheel. So that creates the foundation of the layout. Now I really just need to get the picture on to tell the story. And I converted the picture to black and white, and I'd actually printed this picture and converted it quite some time ago, but I never really was able to find papers that worked with the story until this challenge there. So you can see that there's multiple places where the picture can go. The logical place for the picture to go, which is really to that left-hand side, I didn't leave myself enough room with that cut file, so I'm going to have to make things work by putting it to the right where I've left space for the picture. But I need some heavier black elements in order to weight out the layout more evenly, and that's the purpose of these stars. So this digital cut file was cut using a free file from Spiegelbaum Scraps, and I originally had another plan for it. I was going to keep it in a circle and use it for a layout that I needed to do for that design team, but I went down a different path, and that's okay. I save these things and I always find another use for them. So I have that leftover piece of the Lily Bee, and that's from a different collection than most of the ones that I use, but I like the black polka dots, and it created just a nice little border behind the photos, or photo, I should say, but still provided some texture to the layout. I did pop it on some foam, and I thought about backing that star, but then you can't see the texture paste that I've put behind it. So for the embellishments that I do have for Lily Bee, I did save all of the labels. I saved the alpha stickers. I have a plethora of those alpha stickers, and I saved some of those words there. And so I want to incorporate those into the layout, and I decided that the stars needed some clusters to go with them, and I go with these circles to start with. And I chose the circles to start with because they had the circles in that pattern paper to the left-hand side. But once I have the picture down, I'm going to change my mind on those circles because they don't really match. Yes, there's the circles in the pattern paper, but everything else is sort of rather linear and boxy, especially with the lines in those stars. So I'm going to swap out those star labels, stickers, for some square ones, and you'll see that happen in a minute. So in order to get the picture where I had it with the pattern paper as a frame, that star ended up being pulled out, and you'll see later on that I actually cut the star out. And what I don't do in the video is I actually do use that star. I just put it on the photo, and it looks perfect there to sort of cover up some of that white space in the photo. So I'm using some labels to just create layers behind the photos, and I really love the color of that long label there, and you'll see I try and make it work, but it just doesn't work, and sometimes you have to accept the fact that elements aren't going to work. So that's one of the word phrase stickers, and it just says, "Oh snap." And then I'm going to pull off a bunch of different stickers. I'm going to create a subtitle to this layout that says spring break. So one of the stickers that's in my hand says spring, and then another one of the stickers says today. But I get distracted, and this is where I decide that I think those square labels are going to work better. The round circles would have worked. There's no reason that they couldn't have, but I like the look of the square better with the long photo and the long rectangular strips that I've got down the side of that page there. Just trying to figure out a placement for these. I want them to look more like clusters rather than sort of blobs on the page, and so it gives me a good place to nestle these stickers. Initially, when I pulled off these letter stickers, I pulled off what was a really, really dark brown. So that's why I put that one back and then go with the black. And so that sticker in the blue top right corner says spring, and then break is what I'm going to spell out with these letters here. And I am going to do a mini Suzanna title shuffle and just kind of line them up because there's some, they didn't line up straight. So, yeah, tweezers come in very handy for these little letters. And then that other sticker, I end up putting that one away. I'm not sure what that one said, but I am going to use the one that says today and use my Scotch Quick Dry adhesive to adhere that down. So I have 2 stars and 2 clusters, and normally I like to go for 3. So later on in the layout, you will see me add a 3rd star and put my 3rd cluster is actually at the bottom of the picture there. There isn't a label, but there is a star that ties it all together because the stars are sort of, there's that 3rd star that I'm going to end up adding. Now, because I've popped the picture, it does have to ride from the flat surface up to that popped picture, but that's okay because you can't really see. It's not all that noticeable, and I just trim off the edge to just again carry that weight from the left hand side of the page over to the right hand side of the page, and that near that black star down that bottom right there is where I will put the teal star from the digital die cut that I end up cutting off. So now I wanted to fill some of these letter openings, so the opening in the O's and the E's and the A's with some enamel dots. So I just chose various enamel dots from Studio Calico. I think some from My Mind's Eye, and filled in a few of the circles. I also needed some weight up the top of the layout there, and I like the way that that black enamel dot just sort of made everything, it filled everything out. And then I put a couple on these squares here to, again, just tie it all together, and it created some movement down the page to the photo there. In the letter stickers, there are some, they look like little stars, and so I put the stars in for a little bit of, again, to go with the stars that are scattered throughout that digital cut file there. So this is, again, a Stash Bash hop, and we are busting through old manufacturers that are no longer in print. I went with Lily Bee Design. Another time that we did this, I used October Afternoon, and I'll link you to that video just up there in the information box on the right-hand side. So from here, you're going to move on and join a few of my other friends to see what else they are stash bashing. I hope you are inspired to dig out some old manufacturer stuff and give it a go. The file was kind of hard to read, and so I wanted to add a little bit more black to the file periodically, and so I just traced out a few of the words, but not all of them. So there's some close-ups to follow. If you're new to my channel, I'd love for you to subscribe. If you enjoyed this video, a thumbs up would be great. Thanks for stopping in today. I hope you're doing well. Take care.